Welcome to Backroom Talk.
All right, Carl, I think we should get this underway. What do
Yeah,
you
let's go.
think?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so our first ever live episode of Backroom Talk. And this is something we're going to do first Wednesday of the month every month. Why are we going live, Carl?
Gosh, yeah, I think it's a good opportunity to kind of bring everyone together, right? Like we try to get these episodes out as quickly as possible and try to keep everything as timely and relevant as possible, but it's like how much more timely and relevant can you get than right there in the moment. So, yeah, it's just to have the ability to, bring in some viewers, answer some questions, and quite frankly, give us the ability to have some interaction with the people that are listening instead of you and I just kind of shooting the shit like we usually do. And we'll still do that, of course.
Absolutely. And guys, we would love you to engage with us in the chat box. So if you have any questions throughout, like we would love to answer them. Let us know what you're thinking on our end. If we say something completely crazy, let us know that too. And we really look forward to being able to engage with you once a month on these live streams. So today we're really going to get into the topic of connection and clients with their program design, Carl.
Yeah, I think, when we were talking about this, Georgia, we were kind of bouncing around some ideas of some timely and relevant and quite frankly things that we wanted to talk about today. And this stood out to me, right? Because, I communicate with our gyms on a daily basis and I kind of feel the pain points that they're having and, the pain points that they're having is the same that every other coach is having, or very similar, or even exacerbated to some extent relative to other people. So, Europe, for instance, right? Like we're seeing more shutdowns in Europe right now, and a lot of our coaches have seen a nice spike in clientele. Everything was going great. New coaches were being hired, full-time coaches, and now they get the message last weekend where it's like, hey guys, we're shutting down for 4 to 8 weeks minimum. So now these coaches are like, okay, we've done this before. We know the process. We're not overly concerned with it, but it's just annoying. So that's that sample size of like six gyms in Europe. So we're also seeing, on the big dog side, right? Like there's athletes that are losing access to gyms and now they're like, I just can't handle this anymore, right? I'm like, I'm fed up, I'm over it. And us as coaches, now we're trying to navigate where it's like, okay, let's take a step back and how do we actually add value to these clients, right? So that's what we're going to talk about today. It's like what can coaches do to continually add value to their clients no matter what situation they're in. And I think that's just so important, so timely, so relevant right now. I think we're in a good spot here in the United States because most places are still open. But I think I told you this last week. I got an email last week from my kid's school district, and they're just like, we're in the orange or yellow. I forgot the color coding, but we're there. And once we get 1% more cases, we're gonna have to completely shut down again, and it might be for the rest of the school year, right? So we're not in the United States. We're not in the clear either, right? I think in some places we're gonna start seeing. In a lot of places, I think we're gonna start seeing re-shutdowns, and I think a lot of that depends on what happens right now and this election and all of that. So I think something's going to happen one way or the other as soon as this thing is all rectified and we know what the country is doing moving forward.
Yeah, and I mean, point of this conversation is that one of the biggest problems and one of the most common questions that arose when we went through that first series of shutdowns and lockdowns was coaches, like on those daily webinars we were hosting, coaches really struggling to get their clients to be compliant in that time. When they're not like physically in the gym with them training, it was that like, how do I get my clients to do this workout I'm delivering for them? I'm following the systems, I'm giving them their workout in True Coach, but they're still not doing it. Like what's going on here? And whether the client is training at home or at the gym, it really doesn't matter. If you can enhance the client's connection to the program design, you're really going to eradicate, like, crazy stuff happens, but for the most part, you can eradicate that issue of compliance that comes up for coaches.
Yeah, I think. Well, do you want to dive into the first topic here?
Yeah, before we get into it though, can you just recount that story that you told me on the phone the other day? Why, in your mind, the topic of connection was so important?
Oh man, yeah. Yeah, so the story that I told you was a personal one, right? It was me and my kid, my 9-year-old, right? We mess around, right? Like we have a home gym. We go out there. He enjoys it. Uh, but he's a 9-year-old, right? He's not like, biting at the bit to get outside of the gym and lift weights as a 9-year-old. And it's like, that's okay, right? I have to like make myself be okay with that, but it's like, that's okay. But we tried something a little bit new this past week where, I said his name is Colton. So I was like, Colton, I want to, because he said something about working out, and he's like, yeah, I want to get out there a couple times a week, blah blah blah. And I was like, okay, but I want you to be a part of this process. And he's like, okay, I have no idea what that means. Cool, let's go out to the garage. So we go out to the garage, we get on the whiteboard, and I just quickly lay out to him patterns, right? I'm like, as a human, we need to be able to perform these patterns, these 6 patterns adequately, right? And I laid them out, right? I'm like, you need to squat in this situation, you need to lunge in these situations, you need to bend, you need to push, you need to pull, you need to be able to use your core, and you need to be able to breathe, right? And we're like right in the middle of a football season with him this year, right? So I actually connected all those things to what he was doing in football. And his eyes lit up. He's like, okay, I'm interested. And he's like, okay, let's do it. And I'm like, well, let's take a step back. You're going to actually help me design your training program. And he's like, what are these words that you're saying? I don't even know what you're talking about. So I was like, okay, so we're going to come out here at least 2 times a week, right? And we're going to do resistance training 2 times a week. I want you to go through these patterns and I want you to put a number 1 or a number 2 next to these patterns. And that's going to tell us if we're going to do these things on day 1 or day 2. So he goes to the squat, he puts a 1. He goes to the lunge, he puts a 1. I'm like, hey, let's hold on a second, right? Like, so I walk him through like, hey, how do your legs feel when you do those goblet squats that you always do? How do your legs feel when you do those walking lunges that you always do, or those split squats? And he's like, yeah, my like this part of my leg really hurts. It gets really tired. I was like, okay, so do you think it's a great idea to put both of those things on the same day? And he's like, no, not at all. So he's like, okay, I'll erase that. I'll put a 2 there. So we just kind of went through that process, and we essentially got to the point where he designed his training program, his own 2-day-a-week training program. So it was like, we're doing these 3 patterns on this day, plus we're breathing. We're doing these 3 patterns on this day, plus we're breathing. He begged for a 3rd day, and I was like, okay, let's just breathe on that 3rd day. And he's like, okay. And when it came to actually being in the gym and executing those workouts, which we've done hundreds of times, there was something different, right? He was excited, like actually excited. He was asking if he could do more. He's like, can I hold this extended front plank for 100 seconds instead of 90 seconds? And I'm like, have at it, man. Like, he was really excited. And in our kind of like, post workout, we kind of just took a walk. I just asked him a few questions like, how, did that feel different? Why did it feel different? And essentially what he said, he was just like, in our terms, it would be, I felt connected to what I was doing, but what came out of his mouth was something more like, I felt like I was doing something that I made. That's what he said. So that just goes back to the point. And I think we're like 3 days into this like new training program, and every day like we're seeing the same things. And he's excited to get into the gym, and he's asking for a 4th day now, right? So I'm just like, no, we're not going to train 4 days a week as a 9-year-old. You don't need to do that. So yeah, that's where the idea of connection really came into play, and that we talk about that shit all the time, right? But to see that not work, but to see that be effective with a 9-year-old was like really eye-opening.
Yeah, I can so relate to that idea of like being part of the process, as to just being a kid with with my mom in the kitchen.
Hmm.
And we had like kids' cookbooks. I was in the kitchen with my mom every day, like cooking dinner. She kind of showed me like which spices would go with which meats and like how to chop veggies and all of that stuff. And I love cooking now. Like, it's a part of my life. It's something that makes me happy. I cook healthy meals for my friends and my family. It brings me a lot of joy. And I think it's because I was, early on, like I was part of that process and didn't
Hmm.
just like see the end result on the table and didn't just have it like thrust upon me. And these lessons that we learn as kids, I think it's just as the same as, when you're an adult and you working with Colton like that. Obviously, you're not going to do it exactly the same working with an adult client, but like, do you sit down with your clients and have them be a part of that process when you are doing programming for them?
Yeah, I mean, I know we talk about that a lot, and webinars that we do and on CCP cohort calls and everything, we always talk about, how can you find ways to create better connection with the exercise, nutrition, and behavior prescriptions with your clients. And everyone is different, right? So there's some people that do want to be a part of that process, and they want to see, the 12-month plan, and they want to see what they're doing and why they're doing it. There's some people that don't give a shit, and they're like, actually don't show me that because that messes with my mind. I hired you to be my coach, and I just want you to tell me what to do. And now we're stuck in that position where we're like, okay, if we're trying to create a level of autonomy with this client and they're telling us that they don't want to be a part of that process, what do we do, right? And I used to, like, early ID days, like, 6, 7 years ago, I just listened to them, right? I was like, cool, that's what you want. You're paying me. I'm going to go into my office and I'm going to create this training program and I'm going to get you better. But what I realized over time was when I did that, those are the clients that actually didn't stick around, or those are the clients that didn't get results because they had no level of connection to their exercise program. So I think we can connect people directly to what they're doing in like the A's and the B's and all of that, or we can connect them to the concept and connect them to why they're doing exercise. Because that's such an important thing to ask, right? It's like, why are we doing exercise? And if I ask that to Colton, right, I'm like, why are you doing exercise? He would have said, because you do it and because you say it's good for me, right? Now, when I ask him that, he says, because I need to be able to squat, lunge, push, pull, bend, use my core for these reasons, and I have to do that effectively. And I'm like, okay, that's connection, right? So if I can create connection with a 9-year-old, there's no excuse why any one of us coaches cannot make a connection with a 20, 30, 40, 80-year-old, right? Because we all have a reason why we do things, but we just need to be that needs to be brought to light. So I think it starts with the question of why are you doing fitness, and then I think it expands from there. So I mentioned like the person that really wants to know what they're doing. That doesn't make it right. Like that person may not be connected to why they're doing fitness, or the person that just kind of wants to be out, or the person in the middle that's kind of like, yeah, cool, I like it when you tell me, but, I don't need you to tell me. Like a great example of that is like Emma, right? It's like, I'll shoot Emma video sometimes, and I'm like, hey, this is what we're doing. This is our program, blah, blah, blah. And she gives me like hey, thanks, I really appreciate that. But she doesn't need that, right? Like I just want to do that as like sorry, Emma. I want to do that as like I want to like make sure that I'm doing what I need to do to make her to ensure that she's connected to her training program, because I don't see her in the gym every day now, right? So it's like those are just like tactful things that we can do to just be like, hey, I'm still paying attention. Hey, there's still a reason why we're doing these things. So I think that's important.
Yeah, this whole notion of making your client a part of the process is really like the first of 6 tactics that we're going to lay out to increase connection to program design. And just to kind of wrap that one up there, one thing I found really valuable, especially when people run into roadblocks. So, they're time poor, or, they were going to cook a healthy dinner, but then there was a food truck out the front of the grocery store, and
Hmm.
so they went and they got pizza from the food truck instead, helping them actually be a part of the process of finding solutions to those problems. So rather than just telling them, walk into the grocery store or go to bed 30 minutes earlier, like stuff like that, actually asking them, how could you, make this not be an issue next time? What can you do to help yourself in the future? I found that be a really beneficial way to bring them into the solution to whatever obstacles they're running into.
Yep. Yeah, and it's also important to note that, just because you have the conversation once or twice or 3 times or 10 times, it's not that easy, right? It has to be a consistent conversation that you have with your clients over X amount of months until they actually get it. Um, Gosh, we would love to think that, a 30-minute consult and laying out, intentions and why we're doing this and blah, 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 that works. But it's like with some clients, it clicks right away, right? And they're good to go. But with most, it takes them hearing that month over month over month over month. And that's where consistency as a coach comes in, right? Like you have to care about them and you have to be consistent in how you care about them and the things that you say to them. So um, humans are difficult. Humans are complex. So usually it's not one time and out with any prescription.
Yeah, I can so think of a great example of that right now, where it's not just months, it's been years with one client of this constant back and forth around managing intensity
Hmm.
and, keeping things, we call it chill, keep things chill. And he is, high power professional, go, go, go kind of mindset, military background, like just wants to go hard every single day. And early on, it was a joke. Like he thought it was funny that he was on the ground, exhausted after his sustainable pace workouts. But over constant conversation, monthly consultations for years, true coach notes, easy pace, chill pace. I want you to be able to hold a conversation during this. He's finally at the point where he'll tell me in his notes, I kept a chill pace, like
Hmm.
I kept it sustainable, and he gets that. But I could have stopped giving him those notes after a month and just assumed that he was going to, follow what I told him. It's really easy to make assumptions and think because you understand something that the person on the other end of the screen, and gosh, this is especially important if people are remote and you're not getting that instant feedback with them. It's so easy to make those assumptions and think that people know what you're thinking, even if you've said it 30
Yep.
times. Sometimes you have to say it 300 times for it to finally sink in, and especially when it's deep rooted in people. They have these personality traits where they think that their value is tied to how hard they work. That's going to bleed into their programming and how they work out and how they approach their workouts, and it takes years and years to pull back those layers.
Yeah, I'll end it here. We keep saying we'll end it on this one, but we keep extending this one. But I think this is another good point is there has to be teaching inside of prescribing, right? Because if you told that client that you have, if you were like, do sustainable work and don't lie on the ground after this sustainable work, period, he's probably going to just say, okay, why, right? Or he may not even ask why and kind of just ignore it and not actually listen to you, right, and practice. But it's like if you lay it out and you're like, hey, these are the reasons why I want you to be sustainable. You start talking about cortisol. You start talking about stress. You start talking about digging yourself a hole. You start talking about stress bucket in your here because of this and that. He might be like, oh shit, she's right. Like I actually need to dial it back. And sometimes those clients are the ones that are like, they take it. You want them to go here, and they go all the way back here because you just scared the shit out of them. Not saying that we need to just like scare people, but we need to teach them the why behind the prescription. And I think we'll just to bring it back to connection, we'll create a better connection with the program design and the client.
Yeah, gosh. And it's funny that you say that because a real turning point in that relationship was where he actually had a health scare.
Hmm.
And he was finally able to connect like what was happening to him on a daily basis with these conversations we've been having around long-term health. And all of a sudden, like, the threat of death honestly became something that brought him back and helped him like actually be in those
Hmm.
conversations. So, yeah, interesting learning process for
Yeah,
sure.
definitely.
So we had a third tactic to increase connection to program design, and that was to trust yourself.
Oh man, yeah, this is a good one. Um, Gosh, I had a conversation with a CCP coach yesterday, and we talked about we talked about because this coach they wanted to jump on a call and they were they were thinking like, I need to do more, I need to do better, I need to be a better coach. Um, I was in CCP V2. I need to get in V3 right now so I can, get in there, learn all of the things and upgrade my practice. And I just started asking this coach some questions on what they were doing right now. I was like, kind of, okay, just take me through your practice. What is your practice? What do you do? And this coach took me through how they onboard clients, how they coach clients on the floor, how they coach clients online, because this coach had, it was like a 50-50 online, on-site coach. And how do you consult with your clients? And I was like, you are doing a great job, right? If you're not just totally bullshitting me, which I don't think you are, you're actually doing a great job. Why do you have this imposter syndrome? Like you're not doing enough. And this coach, this conversation took 10 minutes, this little piece, but it was like, I'm seeing other coaches doing things that I don't know how to do. And I was like, what? Right? Like, what? And so we kind of like unpacked that a little bit. And this coach did have a imposter syndrome to such an extent that they were thinking about giving up coaching because it was too hard, because there was too much to know. And that was all external, right? So, we just went through like, the shit that you see on Instagram may not be someone else's reality, so why try to make it yours? And that coach was like, I never even thought about that, right? I just kind of look at what people are putting on social media, what people are saying on these calls that I have, and blah, blah, blah. And I just take that. And I'm like, that coach is the greatest coach in the world. They know everything. And they're taking all of that knowledge and they're using it with every one of their clients. And we ended that conversation talking about who his clients were and what they needed. And this person had probably 90 to 95% general population, 40 plus working professional clients that just wanted to be healthy. So I was like, okay, let's go back to when we started this call, because they were talking about complex systems and strength and conditioning and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, where will you use that with this client? And this coach was like, well, I probably wouldn't, but now I can open up my target market. And I'm like, come on, man. Like, what are your true intentions as a coach? And it just came back to, I want to feel good about the prescriptions that I give my clients, and I want to have the ability to open it up if needed. So I was like, that is fair. But you can't say that you want to now quit coaching because you don't feel like you know enough and this thing is too hard if you're giving your clients that you have right now a great service. And this coach is coaching like 35, 40 people, like, and doing a great job at coaching those people. So going back to the top, it's like, trust yourself, right? Trust yourself, trust the knowledge that's inside of your brain. Get really, really, become a master at the knowledge that's inside of your brain before you get overly concerned about packing more knowledge inside of there. And I know that sounds weird because we're an education company and we're saying that, but have a good baseline and don't worry about anything else until you master your baseline, and then add stuff to it, right? So I'll keep you guys updated and let you know if that was actually a successful conversation. But leaving that conversation, that it made me think about when we talked about this and we're like, hey, what are some tactics? And it was like, wow, yeah, that just played out right in front of me a day after we talked about this thing.
Yeah, gosh. And where I see it really connecting your clients to their program design is if you lack confidence, and because of that lack of confidence, you try and overprescribe and give people things that you don't really understand because you're trying to be someone that you're not. You end up shooting yourself in the foot. People can sniff, they can smell inauthenticity on people. And if you aren't confident in what you're saying to your clients and putting out there, they're going to know, like, they're going to be able to tell. And that only becomes an issue when you go outside of your lane and you try and give people things that you don't really understand and that don't really feel true to who you are as a coach. So if we want our clients to be connected to their program design, they have to trust us. They have to think of us as the expert. They're paying us money to give them fitness, exercise, behavior prescriptions. They wouldn't do that if they didn't think we were the expert. So when we engage in conversations, of course, be humble, be open to new ideas, be okay with saying, I don't know something, but also own what you know and really feel confident in giving people things that are within your capabilities.
Yeah, that's where I think a good self-assessment is beneficial, where it's like if you feel that as a coach and you don't trust what you're giving your clients, take a step back, right? Like, create a meeting with yourself and write down all of the things that come to your brain that make you think that, right? So if those things, if you have this list and it's like, I never really finished any fitness education, I don't actually have a lot of experience coaching people, I've never really had a one-to-one consultation. It's like, okay, that imposter syndrome is probably warranted and you need to go and like fix that shit, right? Like, you need to go fix that up. But if you're like, I have all of this education, I have all of this experience, my clients love me, I love my clients, it's like, be okay with where you're at and trust yourself. But I don't want to just like blanket it out, like trust yourself all the time, because maybe you have that imposter syndrome feeling for a warranted reason because you're actually an imposter, right?
Yeah, it's something to chew on and think about, guys.
Yeah. No, yeah, seriously.
There are a lot of people out there in the fitness industry and in the social media world who certainly deserve that title right now.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Gosh, in every world, right? Sometimes we fall into opportunities, and sometimes we don't think that we deserve that opportunity. And to cover that up, we make it look like we're crushing it, right? We make it look like we know what we're doing. We make it look like we know what we're talking about. And social media is just such an easy place to see that, right? Like, and it's difficult to say like, well, this person's an imposter, this person isn't, right? But it's like so many, the sample size is so large, right? Like go to your, search function on your Instagram, and if you're in fitness at all, what are you going to see? You're going to see a lot of imposters that you're not following, that Instagram wants you to follow because they have 200,000 followers, right? No offense to anyone with 200,000 followers. I am just jealous because I have 10.
3,000 now, Carl?
I don't know. I can't swipe up yet, though.
Follow at Hardwick Carl, guys. All right. So tactic number 4 for increasing connection to program design was have a framework. Could you start by elaborating on that?
Yeah, God, I think this one it's such an easy one in my brain, but I hope you guys understand by what I mean by have a framework. It's like have rules, have principles, have a reason why you're doing everything. Because if you don't have a framework, you don't have boundaries. And if you don't have boundaries, shit's going to go haywire at any given time, right? And I think we could all look back at, let me keep this relevant to program design. I think we could all look back at a time where we're in week, 4 out of 8 in a program or a training split, and we look back at, the priorities of that cycle or that cycle split, and we're like, oh my God, Wednesday, what the hell did I do? I didn't even intend to do OPEX pain on this day, but I'm like taking this person through like really tough intervals, and the original intention was to do map 7, right? So those are just principle based ideas and a principle based way to design a training program specifically, right? So if you have principles, Georgia, and you're like, just because Georgia's coaching herself now, so if Georgia has principles inside of her head and she's like, okay, when I'm doing long aerobic work, I don't do really hard anaerobic work. And that's like a principle inside of your program design. It's like, just because you have that like ingrained in your head, but you're like, I want to kind of, explore here and there or here and there. And it's like, you start to see yourself doing a lot of anaerobic work and long aerobic work, and you want to get better at both of those things. You're going to look at your program one day and be like, oh my gosh, God, my framework that I have inside of my brain, I am working outside of that. So now you can check yourself to get back inside of that framework. So it's just to have principles in program design, have principles in how you speak to people, have principles in how you want to be as a coach, have principles in why you coach, right? Like principles are just so important.
So this feels extra relevant right now to coaches, especially those in Europe or even those in the US whose clients are training remotely or have gone from training in a gym setting. They're at home, they have access to like one dumbbell and a band, and that's all, and they're training in their living room because they can't go outside. How do you stick with principles in that setting? Because I know, like, I look back at my programs from that period where we first went into lockdown, and we didn't really know, like, was this going to be like a couple weeks?
Yep.
Was this going to be a couple months? And there are a few weeks in there where I can see, like, I'm a little bit confused between, like, the training cycle I was in with my clients, and then we're in this hiatus period, and I'm really not sure what's happening next. And then we kind of settled into a groove.
Yeah, I think, well, watch this, right? It's November 4th. I'm Georgia's coach. Georgia, we just went into lockdown. Now we're having a conversation. Hey, Georgia, you have access to 2 dumbbells, a band, your body, and that's all that you have. Over the next 6 weeks, we're going to use those tools. We're going to stick to principles. Your goals are to look good, you want to feel good, and you want to explore some things. We're going to do all of those things, but you have to realize that we only have these tools at play. Are you okay to stick with these tools over the next 6 weeks and give this thing a go?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Now I'm going back. Okay, consult over, high five. I'm going to go back into my office. I'm going to design this awesome training program because we're connected, right? Like I don't have this like weird feeling when I put in Wednesday where I'm like, Georgia's going to think this is boring. No, who gives a shit? We already had this conversation, right? This thing is going to be really linear. We're probably going to mess around with some new things because you like to kind of explore left or right. But in my head, as your coach, I know that you're okay with what I'm giving you. So now I'm okay with what I'm giving you, right? So connection, right? Like connect your client to what you're giving them and be on the same page, right? Like me and Georgia aren't sitting down and I'm saying, hey, Georgia, we have this band, we have these dumbbells, and we have your body. This is going to be the most excellent training program that you've ever done. It's going to be so fun. You're going to lose 3% body fat for sure over the next 3 weeks. You're going to add 15 pounds to your back squat, right? It's like if I'm having that conversation, Siri did not like any of that.
You're getting way too animated for Siri, Carl.
Yeah, no, you know what I mean? So it's like, set those expectations because usually as coaches, that shit's in our own head, right? Have you ever had a consult with a client and you thought that consult was going to go shitty because you're thinking they're not enjoying what they're doing. They haven't filled out their true coach in the past, 2 weeks, blah, blah. You get on with them. They're like, Georgia, I fucking love what we're doing. Sorry about the true coach thing. I've just been so busy with my family and I've been so engaged in the gym that I actually forgot to actually put in my results. I love this. Like, can I sign up for another 2 years with you? Right?
I've absolutely had that. And I was just like reflecting on it this morning. It's something that's gotten better over time as I think I've just trusted myself a little bit more and gained confidence in my abilities, as we were talking about. But I used to go through this cycle where I'd have all my consultations, kind of at the beginning of the month with my clients. Everything was good and dandy. The weeks tick on. And just because I'm working mostly with remote clients, you're a little bit further away from them. You're not having that daily face-to-face where you're like seeing them in the gym, giving them high fives, all of that good stuff. I would feel like, they're probably not enjoying themselves. Like, did they actually like this thing? How was their experience doing this like new back squat cycle? And I'd have this anxiety going into that next round of consultations, and then everything's like awesome,
Yep.
So anyway, I know that feeling for sure.
Yeah, so it's goes back to I think all of these all of these points kind of connect, but it's like connect your client to what they're doing and trust yourself as a coach and what you're giving your clients.
Yeah.
Right? Because most coaches that do this thing full time and that do this thing and they take it seriously, right? I'm not going to throw the term professional there, but they do it seriously. They care about their clients. Most of those coaches do a good enough job to not have to worry about how does my client feel right now, right? And it's like, I get it. Some people are over carers and that's okay in some instances, but sometimes when we over care about every single person, about every single thing, it actually puts us in this like loop of like, this negative feedback loop of like, I'm not doing enough. I'm not doing the right things. And we're just so engaged in that loop that we don't have time to take a step back and enjoy the awesome relationship that we have with our clients, to enjoy sitting down and designing an awesome training program, right? Because, reflect back on or just reflect on a weekly basis or daily basis, however often you design training programs, do you enjoy writing training programs? Because the coaches that don't, usually there's either a level of like, anxiety that they're not good at it. There's a level of anxiety that their clients aren't happy. There's a level of anxiety of, I actually don't want to coach and I don't want to do this anymore, right? So I think that's that's a red flag. If you don't enjoy getting on consults with your clients and you don't enjoy designing training programs, not telling you to quit coaching. Take a step back and identify why you don't enjoy those things and clean that stuff up, right? Because you should enjoy getting on consults. You should enjoy designing training programs. We're all busy, guys. We're all busy. So I know how the days can kind of like compound on each other. But if you don't enjoy those things, take a step back and figure out what will make you enjoy those things.
Yeah, coaching is certainly not the easiest way to make money in the scheme of professions. So if you aren't actually enjoying the process, of course, work is work. But if you don't enjoy the act of coaching and engaging with people, then yeah, probably the wrong profession for you.
But gosh, I kind of disagree with you because when I was coaching like 65, 70 people, I enjoyed it and it was really easy to make money.
Well, fair,
you
fair.
know,
And that's
because
individual design, though.
yeah, that's true, that's true. Yep.
All right. Well, tactic number 5, I think we should roll into that. And that was to be okay with imperfection.
Oh man, this is
But
a deep one.
I thought you were perfect, Carl.
This isn't for me. No, no, I'm kidding. Gosh, I'm one of the most imperfect people. Yeah, I think we spend too much time trying to get things perfectly right, right? So it's like we try to design the perfect training program instead of doing the previous 4 things that we just talked about, right? So imagine yourself if you are that coach that really does enjoy designing training programs, but you don't enjoy consultations, and you sit down and you're like, I'm so laser focused on designing the perfect program, and I don't actually put any time and effort to connecting my client to this program or to have ongoing conversations or connection with my client. It's like that program is now one of the worst programs for that client because they don't give a shit about it, you know? So it's funny how all these things really do connect, but have a framework, have principles, stay within those, and explore some stuff inside of there, right? There's a lot of opportunity to explore. We have principles in fitness, but guys, let's be honest. There's no perfect prescription for every person. There's not even a perfect prescription for a single person, right? Every day that you and I wake up, Georgia, we're different human beings. Things have changed in us, right? Even if like we get to the age where we're not actually growing anymore and we're not, adapting really, we may have gotten a little bit less sleep last night, right? So now you're a different person than you were yesterday when you woke up, right? Maybe you have some things on your mind today and you're not as engaged as you were yesterday. You're not the same person. So, this perfect 7-day training program now is not perfect because you're a different person from day 1 to day 2. So I say all of that just to say not to sit down and spend 60 minutes to design that perfect training program. Stay within your principles, design something that you know is right for your client and that pushes them a little bit closer to their goals, and it's something that they're going to enjoy doing inside of the gym or in their backyard or in their house, wherever they're training, and worry about that stuff and put a little bit more effort into those other pieces. So that's kind of where my head was at when I heard you say be okay with imperfection. Don't spend too much time in areas that aren't going to. It's almost like the what's the squeeze, the juice isn't worth the squeeze.
Yes, I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
that's
So
it.
yeah, so in those instances, the juice isn't worth the squeeze.
So where I think about this is just making sure, like, obviously you don't want to be so imperfect that you send someone down this route of like, they wanted to get leaner and all of a sudden they're like training for a strongman competition and just like putting on body weight. Make sure you have like little check-ins and like litmus tests and like an open feedback loop with your clients so you can make sure that they are, in the broad scheme of things, progressing in the right direction. But again, like, things aren't going to go right from week to week. Not everything is going to be perfect. You're going to make mistakes as a coach. You're going to, forget to write the reps and sets at some point in your program designs. And so long as you make sure that you have open communication, you can catch yourself on those things so you don't go so far down the wrong route. You're not just like copying and pasting no reps and sets like every week from week to week. And every week your client's messaging you and you're not, reading. This has never happened to me, but it hasn't. But you want to make sure, you're reading those messages, you're reading the feedback, and you can make adjustments because those mistakes will happen. But if you're open, honest, and like human about it, like normally it's not a big deal.
Yeah, coaches have to be so agile, right? It's like we have to be agile and that sometimes we give the wrong prescription, right? Well, most times we give the wrong prescription. Maybe not most times. Often we give the wrong prescription, but that's why, personalized fitness and individual design is such a powerful thing because we can catch that. You know what I mean? If I give you the wrong thing on Monday, next Monday, I'm not going to give you the wrong thing again, right? I'm going to kind of adjust with you. And that's what the whole model is built off of, right? So, yeah, I know we're getting down the ID rabbit hole, but I think it's relevant when talking about all of these points and having connections with your clients and giving them the right things and being okay with being agile and being okay with getting feedback from your client and not always looking down at them like I'm the coach, I know it all, right? So it's like I don't need you to tell me that this didn't feel good. We need to do this again next week because this is the exercise that you need to do, and this is the only exercise that you can do to get you to where I know you need to go.
Yeah, gosh. And to avoid going down that idea rabbit hole, something that comes to mind with this idea of imperfection, especially right now with clients training at home, like, is it wrong for that client to want to do a Peloton workout or to want to, do some online yoga class a couple times a week or all of these other things if they're able to do it consistently? What do you think?
Gosh, I mean, I think you know where I stand on that. No, right? It's like if when we talk about individual design, like what is the outcome that we want, right? Us, it's we want everyone to do their ideal version of fitness, right? So is it going to hurt someone to jump on a Peloton bike and follow this instructor on a screen for 30 minutes on a Tuesday? No, right? If that's going to hurt that client, you're probably giving them the wrong stuff if they can't if they can't adjust and jump on a bike and go for 30 minutes at any given time. Is it wrong to go off program and do yoga in their house and skip a training session because they're auto regulating and they're like, I'm just not feeling it today? No, that's ideal for them right now, right? Um, so yeah, I don't know if that answered that, Georgia, but I think as long as that person is doing something that is safe, that they're capable of doing, and that doesn't derail them from what they're trying to do in fitness, by all means, go for it.
Yeah, that absolutely answers it. And to me, that notion of the ideal version of fitness, what it connects to is not like some idea we've concocted in our head of what ideal means, but fitness that matches someone's lifestyles, what their capabilities are, and what their resources and access is in that
Hmm.
moment.
Yep.
All right. Number six, let's hit our sixth tactic, which is to surround yourself with a good support system.
Yeah, that's an important one. I think we talked about that on I think we talked about that on our last OPEX staff call, where we were kind of talking about, how difficult it is right now, with everyone being remote. And, you guys that are listening, if you guys are going back on lockdown, you can kind of go back to the first time you were on lockdown. It was like you were probably around the same two, three, four people day after day after day after day. Um, and I think it's important to look at, based on what my goals are, based on, how I want to feel on a daily basis. I think most of us want to feel happy on a daily basis. Are we surrounding ourselves with like-minded people or people that are already to where we want to go, right? So we can look at this in economics, right? Like if you want to make more money, you should probably surround yourself with people that make more money, right? Make the amount of money that you want to make, right? And I'm not saying like let's build this like classist society and like separate yourself from, you know what I'm saying though? So it's like it is true. It's like we are the, 3 to 5 people that we surround ourselves with. So it's like, if you want to be a smarter fitness coach, surround yourself with smarter fitness coaches.
Hang out with Carl Hardwick.
I'm blushing. I'm blushing. You guys can't see it, but I'm blushing under this skin. Yeah, no, it's an important thing to think about, right? If you don't want to be miserable, don't surround yourself with a bunch of miserable people, right? Like that's those things are so important, right? So, um, when we start to look at how that affects, coaches versus how that affects clients, coaches, this is a great conversation that you should have with your clients, right? Ask them, do you feel like you're supported in these goals that we talk about every single month? Like, what is your support system? What does that look like, right? And if they're like, well, no, I have these friends that, they're great friends of mine. They're awesome people. My goal is to stop drinking alcohol every weekend, but everyone I hang out with drinks alcohol every weekend. It's like, well, what do you think you should do, right? It's like, if that's that important to you, maybe you shouldn't hang out with those people on the weekends, right? So it's like just little things like that I think a lot of coaches and definitely a lot of clients, they just don't think about. They're just like, I want to do this thing, I want to do this thing, I want to do this thing, but there's this crutch, but there's this crutch, but there's this, you know what I mean? So, if that crutch is your, husband or wife or your kids, like, I don't know, that's probably a conversation outside of my scope of practice, but think about what you need to do to create a better support system.
to play devil's advocate on that a little bit though, for the people, someone who's in London and they've just gone on lockdown and they're stuck at home with an unsupportive spouse or a roommate, or parents who are not supportive of their goals, like that's hard.
Yeah, yeah, I think don't do this, but I think that's why we saw, divorce rates increase significantly during the lockdown, especially, well, at least here in the United States. I'm not sure about overseas, but we saw divorce rates increase, right? I'm not saying go and get divorced, but it's like, why is there disconnection there? Just the same things that we talked about in the first few points. It's like, is there a conversation to be had, right? Like if you're 20 pounds overweight and your family is also 20 pounds overweight and they don't support your goals of losing weight, maybe that's a teaching opportunity to sit down and say, hey, I think this is good for our entire family, right? To all be aligned on wanting to lose body fat, right? And like these are the reasons why, and blah blah blah. So it's like, if that doesn't work, it's like I have nothing for you. But I think we have to communicate, right? Like we have to communicate our feelings, if we're actually in those issues or in those situations, and we have to let it be known that those are issues that we're having.
Yeah, I guess one positive there is that, you spend more time in a situation with the people that you're, living with. Those issues are going to bubble to the surface, and you are going to become more aware of them. So maybe you can do something about it moving forward.
Yeah, I think every group of people, and this is just how we are as humans. Every group of people has a leader, whether it's spoken or unspoken. Every group of people has a leader. So it's like identify who the leader is in your group of people. Let me ask this: who's the leader in your house? You or Jacob?
You know the answer to that, Carl.
Man, guys, I just opened up a can of worms. Or Jacob's like, yeah, fuck it, yeah, shit.
You know him too. He's totally fine with it. He loves it.
Yeah, so it's like, we have to identify, I'm just going to use hierarchy just to say that word. But we have to identify what the hierarchy is and, who's actually the decision maker, right? Like if we're the parent to 3 kids, it's like you better be the leader as the parent, right? So don't be the problem, right? So if you're the one that has the terrible attitude, if you're the one that has the terrible lifestyle habits, it's like look in the mirror and fix those, right? If you're not the leader, Jacob, if you're not the leader in your household, you need to have those conversations with the leader, right? And that's how you get on the same page, right? It's like we have to make other people understand the way we feel, and we have to attempt to make other people, if they're not going to get on board with it, at least understand it,
Yeah.
right? Because I know there's a lot of people in households that have different behaviors, and they have a great relationship, but there's like this understanding that you're that person and I'm this person, and we're actually okay with that. It's almost like me and my wife, right? Like she's not a fitness addict. I am. She doesn't hate me for it. She's like, yeah, you're okay. Yeah, you do your thing, man. Like you're always thinking about fitness or doing fitness or something around that, which is okay, right? But I can see it go the other way, where it's like I have seen it go the other way, where there's someone that is so engulfed in like this certain thing, behavior, work, activity, whatever it is, and it actually separates them from their spouse, and they actually break up because of it, and leave each other
Yeah.
because there's not that understanding of like, this is you, this is me, it's okay, we're different people.
Dude, I lived that when I first got into fitness. I had a long-term relationship disintegrate because he couldn't handle it.
Couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
It's a good way to put it.
Well, guys, I think that's a good place to wrap our 6 tactics to connect your clients to program design. Now, we do have a couple Q&As in the chat box, so I would like to hit on them before we do wrap up. And Connor had asked, he wants to coach mixed modal athletes. Would we recommend doing CCP and then mixed modal, or is just the mixed modal course enough? So, Carl, as course instructor of CCP, you want to take this?
Yeah, yeah, it's a tough one just because I don't know what you know right now. I don't know your background. I don't know what's inside of your brain. Just because we say things a very certain way at OPEX, right? Like we our verbiage is so different than anyone else's in the industry. And I'm not saying it's better, it's just ours. We speak a certain way, we believe things a certain way, and usually it's a little bit different than everyone else. So that's where you kind of learn the language. Let's just put it that way. So I will always recommend that anyone goes through CCP first, just because we want them to join the tribe and speak our language and be a part of us. Not to say that if you go the mixed modal route, like we're gonna shun you. It's like you're not one of us. But I think it just sets you up better to understand the nuanced concepts inside of mixed modal. But on the other hand, like if you're a well-versed coach and you get it and you understand, principles and all of that, it's like, yeah, definitely jump into mixed modal if you feel like you're ready for that.
Cool. I hope that answers your question, Connor. Next one came from Hans, and he asks, could you explain what battery work is?
Oh, yeah. Oof, this is outside of
This
conversation.
Is,
But
yeah,
hey, it's good.
Let's go into it.
Yeah. Gosh, yeah, just think of battery work being work that's performed in a given amount of time where you're performing tougher contractions over and over and over again, and those contractions are higher percentages of your 1 rep max. So for instance, if I said, hey, I want you to clean and jerk 20 reps at 80% of your 1 rep max for time, that would be battery work. If I tell you I want you to do, 10 snatches at 70%, and then I want you to go do like some gymnastic stuff, and then 8 snatches at 70% and go do some gymnastic stuff, blah, 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 all the way down to 2, that would be battery work. So just think about performing tougher contractions over and over and over. Usually it's higher volume in a given amount of time.
Cool. And then Hans had also asked about scholarships. We don't currently have any scholarships that we're running for CCP. Last question is one that we had on...
We will in 2021, though. So we ran our 2020 scholarship already.
We did, yeah, we did. Thank you for hitting on that.
Yep.
Last question was one we had on Instagram, and it was around the terminology we use inside of CCP, specifically like scientific terms for anatomy and movement. Is that something that a coach should use on the floor when working with their clients?
Ooh, depends on who you're talking to. If you're talking to someone that has zero experience in anatomy, physiology, anything like that, let's say they're, a second grade school teacher, right? They teach English. It's like, are you going to connect with them when you start to use anatomical terms? Like, if you can and they understand that, awesome, do it. If not, don't, because when people don't understand things, usually they don't ask for you to explain what you mean. They just nod their head and they just go about their business because no one likes to feel stupid. So I would always dumb everything down, even to the highest level, like knowledge-wise person, right? It's like, why not just use ankle, right? So yeah, I would keep it dumbed down on the floor for sure. Just because if someone doesn't understand what you're talking about, most likely they're not going to ask you what you mean, and then that means they're not going to actually get any benefit from you coaching them on the floor.
Yeah, gosh, and times I see this go wrong is often when there is a confidence issue on part of the client, the coach, and they're trying to build themselves up by using big terms, and it just overwhelms the client, and it ends up not being good for anyone.
Guys, no one likes that coach either. I don't really like that coach that much.
Nope. Coaches certainly don't.
Yeah. Gosh, just use normal language, guys.
Don't be that guy. All right, guys. Well, we are going to wrap this very first episode of Backroom Talk live now. Now, we will be back first week in December, same time, Wednesday, to do this all over again. So we look forward to that. Please make sure you are subscribed to our YouTube channel so you get notifications about it. And we would massively appreciate if you could leave us a like and a comment below this video to let us know what you thought. It will really help us make the conversation better for you next time.
Like, subscribe below. What are the other YouTube things they say?
Oh, I feel like those
like, subscribe, do this. You can't share on YouTube, can you? No, you can't share.
No.
Yeah, do everything that you can possibly do to benefit us, please.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks a lot, guys. We appreciate it.